Hi everyone, I'm Tally, this is Farrell, and we are bored of it. And today we're going to be reviewing Weather Machine, the stormy new Vital Lacerda game, which is already dividing opinions. Well, more than he usually does. In the world of Weather Machine, 1 to 4 players will play as scientists attempting to create a second, better weather machine after Professor Lativ's initial one, whilst working in one area, also created deadly storms across other areas of the globe. So not ideal.
Yeah, I mean, Weather Machine definitely sounds like more interesting science than the science I used to do. But if you've played a Vital Lacerda game before, then you'll know what you're getting into. But if you haven't, he's a designer known for creating these complex, very intricate games that you have to unpick, and you'll probably need some practice to be any kind of good at. Weather Machine is another one of those, and the core is going to see you in a kind of worker placement style. You're going to move, you're going to take some actions. Pretty much anything you do will give you bonuses, and then the game is to spin out those bonuses into kind of more resources and more actions, and do as much as possible while optimizing what you do, because you have a limited amount of time. Oh man, how to describe this one, because it is a doozy, and we like these types of games and we do a lot of explanations, but honestly for this one it's just going to really be a brief overview, because otherwise we could be here all day. So on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to move your scientist to a different section than where you are, like so, and then you're going to take an action or actions in that section. And you do this by spinning vouchers. And on your player board, you're going to have a bunch of voucher tracks, one for each section, and then a 5th track with kind of wild vouchers that you can spend on anything you like. Section number 1 is the supply. Here you can get all the resources you're going to need for the game, and you can also take as many actions as you want, as long as you have the vouchers to spend. Sections 2, 3, and 4, these each have 2 actions. And section 2 is the government, section 3 is Lativ's lab, section 4 is research and development. And whether you can do one or both of the actions they provide is dependent on which worker placement space you manage to get. Now, the first action in these 3 are quite similar. Basically, you're going to go there, you're going to leave some resources behind, you're going to get a bonus, you're going to move up the track corresponding with it, and you're kind of contributing to something that will eventually run when it's filled up, and it will provide you with points. The second action in each of these is a little bit more complex, and some of them have a lot of prerequisites before you can do them. In the government, the second action is kind of just getting a bunch of bonuses and vouchers and stuff. And in the other 2, it's more about publishing things you've collected. You collect research and you get to publish it, or kind of building a prototype based on what you've learned so far.
The main goal is to travel between sections 2 and 4, taking actions and getting some research as a reward. Once you have enough research on a specific type of weather, you can publish a paper to score some points, and after that you can have a breakthrough on that weather to score even more points. Alternatively, you can help the government build their own weather machines to score more points. Once everyone has taken an action, you'll see if the weather machine in Lativ's lab will run, which requires a certain number of factors, which we won't get into the details of here. But if it does, some people will score some points and rewards.
The game will end after a variable number of rounds, because there are a few different endgame triggers. Most of the time, the game will end because you put the last of these weather tiles in the weather machine. But it can also end if this section here or this section over here becomes full with kind of players' bots, or if a player gets 3 reward tokens. And being a Euro game, the player who has the most points at the end of the game will be the winner. Weather Machine is a hard game to review because, I mean, the first reason is a Vital Lacerda game, which is divisive anyway. Some people see him as a genius designer. Other people see his games as games that are complex just for the sake of being complex, with not a lot of fun to be had playing them. For our part, we're big fans. Tally is particularly fond of Kanban EV.
Yep.
I'm particularly fond of On Mars. But Weather Machine is kind of unique in some ways because while there are elements of previous games, there's also departures. There's kind of more sharp edges than usual to catch yourself on. It's a little different in that you do have a lot more kind of one-use rules, like kind of at odds with each other. And the last thing is there's more of a disconnect between the mechanical gameplay and the theme than you'd usually see in his games.
Yeah. On the other hand, though, Weather Machine is a very rewarding and addictive experience. A key aspect that draws a lot of people to Lacerda's games is the challenge of unpicking the mechanisms, going from getting 40 points in your first game to over 100 in your 10th game. Learning the intricacies of the design then creates a higher level of play if you play with the same group. And Weather Machine might just be the pinnacle of this of Lacerda's offerings. But let's start at the very beginning, learning the game. Much has been made of Weather Machine having lots of one-off edge case rules, particularly with regards to two-player games, and we personally feel like people have been a little bit harsh here. For our part, yes, they are there, but they're not particularly confusing or extra. Also, the additional rules upkeep in the two-player game is so nominal, we honestly think it wouldn't have even been mentioned if it wasn't a Lacerda game.
But I think you can't blame people for feeling this way, because although the world of Weather Machine is well realised and the actions are framed smartly, and is also a terrifically engaging theme, there's an element of disconnect between the mechanical aspects of the actions you do and the theme. For example, why is it that in the first section you lose vouchers if someone's to your left, but in every other section you gain vouchers if they're to your left? Why is it that in a laboratory you spend chemicals and place them back in the supply, but in research and development you leave them there? While we're sure there is a reason for this, it's not apparent, and that's the issue here. And another infamous little problem that attests to this being a recurring theme is the artwork in Lativ's lab. It shows machine parts, which here, those machine parts are just decorative, don't mean anything. Over here, they indicate something. And while we never had an issue with this, it never confused us, I can understand people's frustration about this unnecessarily complicating the learning process. We did have it in a game we taught that a player was trying to pay to go here with a machine part. And then they kind of feel a bit put out because they thought they were getting the game and suddenly the rug's pulled out from under them. But what we will say is that it might be the most beautiful of all Lacerda games. I think Eno Tool has again outdone himself, and the components are gorgeous. And the hard thing about reviewing Weather Machine is a lot of what we've said is almost negated and rendered moot by what Weather Machine is. It's a game designed to be complex. It's a game designed to have a barrier to entry. It's a game designed to reward players who play it repeatedly. It's not a game designed for mass market appeal. It's not a game designed for people who are going to play it 1, 2, 3 times and then say, no, too complex, not for me. Because this is a game that gives you a different experience on your first play, your 5th play, your 10th play, your 20th play. And it is rewarding to stick with it. I wish you could see the joy this game gave Tally in the last 2 games we've played, where she kind of intricately weaved her way through all the systems, she comboed her bonuses together, she got a lot of points, most importantly to her, she beat me. And, it was a really rewarding experience coming from the first few plays where, to be honest, the game kind of kicked her ass.
On the gameplay level, Weather Machine is an interesting one. Most of the actions you'll do are fairly simplistic, and you'll fairly rapidly cycle through the turns and rounds. However, this is, in Euro fashion, joined with a system of rewards and bonuses. Almost everything you do will give you something else that you can use, and this is a particularly rewarding and engaging puzzle to navigate. And this is where the crunch comes in, deciding the most optimal path to reach your goal.
Weather Machine is quite good at giving the player interesting options to decide behind. For example, you have all these different sections, and although you do kind of need to do a bit of everything, you can, if you wanted, really focus on one section. And they each have their own little rewards and different aspects that are alluring to players. So it's quite fun and interesting to decide which one you want to kind of specialize in. And as another example, you have these investment tiles. You can spend them to kind of get endgame scoring, and so you register yourself for it, or you can spend them to make the tracks you've been moving up pay out resources. So it's like, do you want to speculate to accumulate and hope that you can turn those resources into even more points? Or do you just want to bank what you reckon you will already get and go for those endgame scoring? And again, this is just a really interesting and kind of fun little decision. And Weather Machine is a game that will be for you if you like these type of games where at any moment you have a number of equally interesting and equally good sounding options, and you have to kind of go with gut on what one to get, or, kind of like pure strategize it.
We particularly like the system of circular actions, which allows you to begin the game from any angle and creates a thoughtful riddle about how you traverse the game in the way that you'd like, because you can't do the same action twice in a row. The added spice of contending with the other players or Lativ in the different locations is equally inspired, as it creates some great push-pull decisions. Should I go to the location where Lativ is so I can move him along and get income from him? Or should I do this action that I don't particularly want to do right now, but it can get me some extra vouchers?
The one thing I would say about this system of actions is that although it's very smooth, it's not 100% smooth. I don't really like that for particular actions, there are very specific prerequisites you have to meet to take them. Because to me, it's just a juxtaposition of this kind of circular looping system where I'm supposed to be weaving in between sections, going here, getting some bonus actions, going there, figuring out this puzzle. But then there are actions along this route that are just like, no, do not enter. Maybe it's a personal thing, but it just feels a bit off to me. I will say though, that this looping and kind of very seamless system of moving between the sections, it does create for a really nice flow of gameplay, because you almost don't feel like there are rounds, which there are, but because you don't, it creates a really nice pace to the game.
The last thing we'll touch on is the player count. Now this is one that does feel very different according to the number of people you have around the table. And a key reason for that is you don't shrink the number of spaces that the robots have to go to in order to have the machines run. So there's less elbows knocking together at 2, but it does mean it's going to be harder to fill those spaces and have the machines run and have them pay off. We like playing at 2, we're going to continue to play at 2, but we would rather play at more. It creates a more interesting experience because you have this weirdly cooperative element where you're working together to fill the spaces, make the machines run. Plus, contending to the wills and actions of other players is always a fun problem to navigate. So, final thoughts. Do you want a big, crunchy, brain-melting board game? Do you want a board game that rewards repeated plays? Do you want to unpick a complex web of actions and bonuses in order to optimize your way to the top of the victory track? If yes, then we recommend Weather Machine.
But if you have not experienced a Vital Soda game before, we probably, or most certainly don't recommend This Is Where You Start, because it's one of the most demanding, probably most complex, I don't want to use the word fiddly, but you have these one-off rules. And honestly, even if you are a Vital Soda fan, I'm not sure it's for everyone. I'm not sure I'd recommend it for everyone, because it has been quite a divisive game. I mean, you have channels such as Board Game Ramblings, who I think both had it as their top game of last year. And then you have other reviewers who like Vital Soda games who are giving it scores like 4 and 5 out of 10. So you have a big shift. For our part, we really enjoyed playing it. I don't think either of us would say it's our favorite Vital Soda game, but we're definitely going to keep it and keep playing it. And I really look forward to playing it a lot more so that we really do get to unpick these mechanisms.
Yeah, it's definitely weirdly addictive because it can be, I guess, harsh in a way if things don't quite go your way, but you do just want to start again immediately. So I think there's quite a lot to be said for that, to be fair.
That is very true. So that was our review of Weather Machine. We hope it was helpful, hope it was informative. If it was, please consider subscribing, as it's really important to us to grow the channel. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask us about Weather Machine. And most importantly, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.